Marcus Chen stood in the center of his martial arts school, watching his students practice their kicks. The large room had shiny wooden floors and mirrors covering every wall. Trophies filled the shelves along the back wall, gleaming under the bright lights. Each trophy told a story of victory, of Marcus proving he was better than someone else. The sign outside read Elite Dragon Academy in gold letters. Marcus had chosen that name carefully. He wanted everyone to know this was not just any martial arts school. This was a place for the best people, the right kind of people. At least that's what Marcus believed. Marcus wore his black belt with pride. The belt had 3 gold stripes on it, showing he was a 3rd-degree black belt. He had earned it through years of training and competing. He was good at martial arts, very good. But somewhere along the way, being good at fighting had made Marcus believe he was better than other people in every way. "Focus!" Marcus shouted at a teenage boy who had let his arm drop during a punch. "In my school, we do everything perfectly. If you cannot be perfect, maybe you should train somewhere else." The boy's face turned red. He quickly fixed his form and continued practicing. His mother, sitting in the waiting area, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She paid $200 every month for her son to train here. Marcus knew she would pay it. Parents always paid it. They wanted their children to be associated with success, with excellence, with Marcus Chen. The class ended at 8 o'clock in the evening. Marcus dismissed his students with a sharp bow. They bowed back, then quickly gathered their bags and left. Marcus liked to stay after class, walking through the empty school, admiring what he had built. He had worked hard for this. He had started with nothing and created something impressive. As Marcus locked the equipment closet, he heard a sound in the hallway outside. He opened the door and saw a man mopping the floor. The man was older, maybe in his 60s, with gray hair and dark skin. He wore blue coveralls with a name tag that said, James. He moved the mop slowly, carefully, making sure every spot on the floor was clean. Marcus barely looked at him. The janitor was just part of the building, like the walls or the lights. Marcus walked past him without saying a word. James glanced, briefly nodded politely, then went back to his work. This building housed several businesses. Marcus's school was the largest and most successful. There was also a law office, an accounting firm, and a small insurance company. Marcus often bragged that his business brought more prestige to the building than any of the others. The next evening, Marcus saw James again. The janitor was emptying trash cans near the front entrance. Marcus was walking in with one of his best students, a woman named Jennifer who had been training for 5 years. "These hallways are finally clean," Marcus said loudly, making sure James could hear him. About time someone did their job properly. Jennifer looked uncomfortable but said nothing. James continued working silently, moving to the next trash can. A week later, Marcus arrived early for his evening class. James was cleaning the windows in the hallway. His movements were slow but precise. Each window was left perfectly clear without a single streak. Marcus stopped and watched him for a moment. There was something about the way James moved that caught his attention. The old man's movements were controlled, balanced. But Marcus quickly pushed the thought away. Why would he care about how a janitor moved? "You work here every day?" Marcus asked, his tone flat and unfriendly. James looked at him and smiled slightly. "Yes, sir. Monday through Friday." "Must be nice, having such a simple job. No stress, no pressure to be excellent." James paused, still holding his cleaning cloth. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, but he just nodded. "Every job has its own value," he said quietly. Marcus laughed. "Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night." He walked into his school without another word. Over the following weeks, Marcus saw James nearly every evening. The janitor was always there, quietly doing his work. He emptied trash, mopped floors, cleaned windows, and kept the building spotless. He never complained, never asked for anything, never got in anyone's way. But Marcus began to notice James more and more. Not because he respected him, but because James represented something that bothered Marcus. Here was a man who seemed content with so little. Marcus had worked his whole life to be more than that, to rise above that kind of existence. Seeing James reminded Marcus of what he never wanted to be. One evening, Marcus was talking to a group of parents in the waiting area. Their children were inside practicing. The parents were wealthy, successful people. They drove expensive cars and wore designer clothes. These were Marcus's kind of people. The secret to success, Marcus was saying, is knowing your worth. Never settle for less than you deserve. Some people are content being ordinary, but my students, they aim higher. Just then, James walked past, pushing his cleaning cart. Marcus's eyes followed him. Like that janitor, Marcus said, gesturing toward James. Nice enough man, I'm sure. But imagine being satisfied with that kind of life. Just cleaning up after other people. One of the mothers laughed nervously. Another father nodded in agreement. James gave no sign that he had heard. He simply continued down the hallway, his cart wheels squeaking softly. Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction. He had made his point. He had shown these parents that he understood the difference between excellence and mediocrity. He belonged on their level, not down where James was. But if Marcus had looked more carefully, he might have noticed something interesting. The way James moved his cleaning cart, the way he positioned his feet, the way he maintained perfect balance even while pushing a heavy load. These were not the movements of an ordinary person. These were the movements of someone who understood body mechanics on a deep level. But Marcus did not look carefully. He saw only what he wanted to see. A janitor, someone beneath him, someone he could use to make himself feel superior. As the weeks went by, Marcus's comments about James became more frequent. It was as if he needed to point out the difference between them. He needed to remind everyone, including himself, that he had risen above that kind of life. James never responded to the comments. He just kept working, day after day, his face calm and peaceful. Sometimes people in the other offices would greet him warmly. "Good evening, James," they would say, and James would smile and return the greeting. But Marcus never greeted him. Marcus only noticed James when he wanted to make a point, when he wanted to show someone else how far he had come, how much better he was. The walls of Marcus's school were covered with pictures of him winning tournaments, receiving awards, shaking hands with important people. But there were no pictures of him helping others, no images of him showing kindness or humility. Everything was about Marcus and his achievements. Late one Thursday evening, after all his students had left, Marcus stood alone in his school. He looked at his reflection in the mirror. He saw a successful man, a master of martial arts, someone who had earned respect through hard work and discipline. What he did not see was the emptiness behind his eyes. He did not see the coldness in his smile. He did not see that his success had come at the cost of his humanity. Outside in the hallway, James finished mopping the last section of floor. He wrung out his mop, put it in the cart, and slowly pushed the cart toward the storage room. His body might have looked old and tired, but his spirit was strong. He knew things that Marcus had yet to learn. He understood truths that Marcus could not even imagine. But those revelations would come later. For now, Marcus remained blind to everything except his own reflection. The spring weather brought new students to Marcus's school. Every March, parents would call asking about classes for their children. Marcus enjoyed these calls. He liked deciding who was worthy of joining Elite Dragon Academy and who was not. Marcus had rules about who he accepted. The families needed to look successful. They needed to dress well and drive nice cars. They needed to show they understood quality. Marcus believed he could tell everything about a person just by looking at them. One Tuesday afternoon, Marcus was reorganizing the front desk when he heard the door open. A young boy walked in, maybe 11 or 12 years old. He was black, thin, and wore clothes that had been washed many times. His shoes were old but clean. Behind him came his grandmother, a small woman with kind eyes and tired hands. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked, his voice already cooler than it had been a moment before. "Yes, sir," the boy said. His voice was polite and hopeful. "My name is Devin. I want to learn martial arts. I've been saving money from my paper route for 6 months. The grandmother smiled proudly at her grandson. "Devin has wanted to train here since he saw your school featured in the newspaper. He's a good boy, very disciplined." Marcus looked at them both. He saw the boy's worn clothes and the grandmother's rough hands. He saw that they were not like his usual clients. They would not fit in with the other families. They would not enhance his school's image. "How much have you saved?" Marcus asked Devin. $140, sir, Devin said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. His face glowed with pride. Marcus almost laughed. His monthly tuition was $200. This boy had saved for 6 months and still did not have enough for even 1 month of training. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, not sounding sorry at all. "That's not enough for even 1 month here. We have high costs: equipment, insurance, quality instruction. Perhaps you should try the community center. They offer affordable classes." Devin's face fell. His grandmother put her hand on his shoulder. "We can pay the difference," she said. "I can work extra hours at the hotel." "It's not just about the money," Marcus said, looking down at his appointment book. "We maintain certain standards here. We have a waiting list of students. I'm very selective about who joins." Just then, James appeared in the hallway. He was carrying his cleaning supplies, about to start his afternoon work. He saw Devin and his grandmother, saw the disappointment on their faces, and stopped. Marcus noticed James watching. Something came over Marcus, a need to make his point even clearer. "You see," Marcus said loudly enough for James to hear, "excellence requires sacrifice. Not everyone is cut out for a premier martial arts academy. Some people are meant for different things." He looked directly at James as he said this, then back at Devin. The message was clear. Marcus was grouping them together, separating them from people he considered worthy. Devin's eyes filled with tears, but he did not let them fall. He carefully put his envelope back in his pocket. "Thank you for your time," he said quietly, showing more dignity than Marcus deserved. The grandmother took Devin's hand and led him toward the door. As they passed James, the janitor gave the boy a gentle smile and nodded respectfully to the grandmother. There was something in that simple gesture, a recognition of their worth that Marcus had failed to give. After they left, Marcus felt pleased with himself. He had maintained his standards. He had protected his school's reputation. He did not see James standing in the hallway, watching him with an expression that mixed sadness and disappointment. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's treatment of James grew worse. It was as if rejecting Devin had removed some invisible barrier in Marcus's mind. He no longer felt the need to hide his contempt. "You missed a spot," Marcus would say as he walked past James, pointing at a floor that was already perfectly clean. "Working late again? Guess you can't afford to miss any hours," Marcus said another time, loud enough for his students to hear. James never responded with anger. He would simply nod and continue his work. His silence seemed to irritate Marcus even more. Marcus wanted a reaction, wanted to prove that he could affect this man who seemed so calm and content. One evening, Marcus's assistant instructor, a young man named Ryan, stayed late to help organize equipment. Ryan was a second-degree black belt and had been training under Marcus for 8 years. He admired Marcus's skill but sometimes felt uncomfortable with his teacher's attitude. "Master Chen," Ryan said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," Marcus said, hanging a new certificate on the wall. "Why are you so hard on the janitor? He seems like a nice man. He always keeps this place clean." Marcus turned to face Ryan. "You need to understand something, Ryan. Life is about hierarchy. Some people rise to the top through talent and hard work. Others settle for less. That janitor represents everything I worked to escape. Seeing him reminds me to never become complacent, to never settle for mediocrity." Ryan nodded slowly, but he looked troubled. "But he's just doing his job. He hasn't done anything to you." "That's not the point," Marcus said. "The point is understanding where you stand in the world. I stand here." He gestured to his school, his trophies, his certificates. "He stands there." He pointed to James's cleaning cart in the hallway. "It's not personal. It's just reality." But it was personal. Marcus had made it personal. Every comment, every dismissive gesture, every moment of mockery was personal. The other businesses in the building began to notice Marcus's behavior. The lawyers and accountants would see how Marcus treated James and would shake their heads. Some of them had worked with James for years. They knew he was reliable, kind, and did excellent work. They did not understand why Marcus treated him so poorly. One Friday, Marcus was leaving his school when he ran into Mr. Patterson, one of the senior lawyers from the law office down the hall. Evening, Marcus, Mr. Patterson said. Big tournament coming up? Yes, next month. I'm expecting to place very well, Marcus said. That's great. You know, James mentioned he used to do martial arts back in the day. Maybe you two have something in common. Marcus laughed sharply. I doubt that. James pushes a mop. I teach martial arts at the highest level. We have nothing in common. Mr. Patterson's expression changed. That's a rather harsh way to view another human being, don't you think? Marcus shrugged. I'm just being honest. Some people achieve greatness. Others clean up after them. That's how the world works. Mr. Patterson looked at Marcus for a long moment, then walked away without another word. Marcus did not care. He did not need the lawyer's approval. He knew who he was and what he had accomplished. But Marcus's words had hurt more than he knew. James heard about the conversation later from Mr. Patterson's secretary. She told James what Marcus had said, and she apologized on Marcus's behalf. James just smiled sadly and thanked her for her concern. Some people need to learn lessons the hard way, James told her. My time will come. The secretary did not understand what he meant, but something in his voice suggested that James knew more than he was saying. As March turned to April, Marcus's contempt for James became part of his routine. It was something he did without thinking, like stretching before class or checking his reflection in the mirror. He would see James and make a comment, would use the janitor as an example of what not to be, would remind his students that success meant being nothing like that old man with the cleaning cart. James absorbed it all silently. He continued to arrive every day, do his work perfectly, and leave without complaint. But those who looked closely might have noticed something interesting. Despite Marcus's cruel words, James never looked defeated. He stood straight, moved with quiet confidence, and carried himself with a dignity that no insult could touch. Devon, the boy Marcus had rejected, did not give up on martial arts. His grandmother asked around and learned that James had mentioned knowing someone who taught classes. 3 weeks after Marcus turned him away, Devon started training at a small community center on the other side of town. The instructor there was patient and kind. He saw Devon's heart and dedication. He saw a student who truly wanted to learn, not for show or status, but because he loved the art. Within weeks, Devon was improving rapidly. His instructor was impressed by the boy's focus and determination, but Marcus knew nothing about this. He had forgotten about Devon the moment the boy left his school. Marcus was too busy admiring his own reflection, too focused on his upcoming tournament, too proud to notice that the world was preparing to teach him a lesson he would never forget. That lesson was coming. It was walking toward him on quiet feet, wearing janitor's coveralls, pushing a cleaning cart through hallways Marcus thought he owned. But the truth has a way of revealing itself, and when it did, Marcus's carefully constructed world would shatter like glass hitting a hard floor. The announcement appeared in every martial arts magazine and website in the city. The Grand Masters Exhibition Tournament would take place in 2 months at the city's largest arena. It would feature competitors from all over the region, along with special demonstrations from legendary martial artists. Marcus saw the announcement on a Monday morning. He was drinking coffee at his desk when the email notification appeared. As he read through the details, his heart began to beat faster. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. This tournament would put him in front of thousands of people. Winning would bring new students, media attention, and prove once and for all that he was among the elite. He registered immediately, paying the $200 entry fee without hesitation. The confirmation email arrived within minutes. Marcus printed it out and hung it on his wall next to his other certificates. That evening, before his first class, Marcus gathered all his students together. Adults and children filled the training room, sitting in neat rows on the floor. Marcus stood in front of them, the printed announcement in his hand. I have exciting news, Marcus said. I will be competing in the Grand Masters Exhibition Tournament. This is one of the most prestigious events in our region. Only the best martial artists are invited to compete. His students clapped and cheered. Marcus smiled, soaking in their admiration. This tournament will show everyone what Elite Dragon Academy represents. Excellence, discipline, victory. When you train here, you train with a champion. Jennifer, one of his advanced students, raised her hand. Will we be able to watch? Tickets go on sale next week, Marcus said. I expect all my serious students to attend. You should see what real martial arts looks like at the highest level. After class, Marcus stayed late to practice. He ran through his forms, working on every technique, making sure each movement was sharp and powerful. He was already good, but for this tournament he needed to be perfect. As he practiced, he noticed James in the hallway. The janitor was replacing light bulbs in the ceiling fixtures. He stood on a small ladder, working slowly and carefully. Marcus walked out of his school and stood watching. "Must be nice," Marcus said loudly. "Your job is so simple. Change a light bulb, mop a floor, empty some trash. No pressure to be great at anything." James glanced down from his ladder. He said nothing, just looked at Marcus for a moment before returning to his work. His silence irritated Marcus more than any words could have. "I'm competing in a major tournament in 2 months," Marcus continued, not sure why he felt the need to tell this to the janitor. "People like me train our whole lives for moments like this. We push ourselves to be extraordinary. But I guess you wouldn't understand that." James finished installing the light bulb and carefully climbed down the ladder. He looked at Marcus, and for just a second something flickered in his eyes. It might have been amusement or maybe pity, but his voice was calm when he spoke. "Everyone has their own path," James said quietly. "Good luck in your tournament, Mr. Chen." He picked up his ladder and walked away. Marcus felt oddly unsatisfied by the exchange. He had wanted some kind of reaction, some acknowledgement of the gulf between them. But James had given him nothing except polite words and that strange look. Over the next several weeks, Marcus threw himself into training. He arrived at his school early and stayed late. He practiced his forms until his muscles ached. He studied videos of his previous competitions, looking for weaknesses to fix. The tournament consumed his thoughts. He also began posting about it on social media. He shared photos of himself training, along with captions about dedication and excellence. He posted the tournament announcement with comments about how excited he was to compete against the old guard of martial arts. "Time for a new generation to show what we can do," he wrote in one post. "These traditional masters had their day, but modern martial arts has evolved. Can't wait to demonstrate what real training looks like." Some of his followers congratulated him. Others, especially older martial artists, found his posts disrespectful. One master from a traditional school commented, "Respect for those who came before you is the foundation of martial arts. Without humility, technique means nothing." Marcus deleted the comment. He did not want to hear about humility or respect for the past. He was focused on the future, on his victory. His treatment of James grew even worse during this time. Marcus seemed to need someone to look down on, someone to remind him of what he had risen above. James became that person in Marcus's mind. "Still cleaning?" Marcus would ask as he passed James in the hallway. "Must be fulfilling work." "You know," Marcus said another time, "when I win this tournament, I'll probably raise my rates. Have to keep out the riffraff. Only the best students for the best instructor." James never responded to these comments. He just continued his work, day after day, his face peaceful and calm. Sometimes other people in the building would apologize to James for Marcus's behavior. James would smile and tell them not to worry. "Everyone carries their own burden," James would say. "His is just heavier than he realizes." 6 weeks before the tournament, Marcus held a special parents' meeting. He wanted to tell them about his training and encourage them to buy tickets. 20 parents showed up, sitting in chairs Marcus had arranged in a circle. "This tournament represents everything I've built," Marcus told them. "When your children train here, they're learning from someone who competes at the highest level. They're learning from a winner." One father raised his hand. "Are there different levels of competition?" "Yes," Marcus said. "There's the youth division, adult division, and the masters division for older competitors. I'll be in the adult division, obviously. The masters division is for people over 60, mostly traditional martial artists who can't compete at the faster pace anymore." He laughed at his own comment. Several parents laughed along with him. Marcus felt validated. These people understood. They knew that youth and modern training methods were superior to old traditions. After the meeting, Marcus walked out to find James cleaning the drinking fountain near the entrance. It was 9 o'clock at night. James worked late hours to accommodate the building's busy schedule. "You're here late," Marcus said. "Don't you have a home to go to?" "I do," James said. "Just finishing up." "Have a good evening, Mr. Chen." "I always do," Marcus said. Success brings good evenings. He walked to his car feeling satisfied. Everything was going according to plan. His training was progressing perfectly. His school was full of students. His reputation was growing. The tournament would be his moment of triumph. What Marcus did not know was that the tournament organizers were very careful about which masters they invited to demonstrate. They only invited legends, people whose skills and contributions to martial arts were extraordinary. The list was short and exclusive. What Marcus did not know was that James had received an invitation to demonstrate at the tournament. The invitation had arrived at his small apartment 3 weeks ago. James had accepted, but he had asked the organizers not to publicize his participation. He wanted to make his demonstration quietly without fanfare. What Marcus did not know was that Devin, the boy he had rejected, was now training harder than any of Marcus's students. Devin's instructor had entered him in the youth division of the same tournament. The boy was hungry to prove that he deserved respect, that his worth was not measured by his clothes or his family's money. What Marcus did not know was that several people who had seen his social media posts were planning to attend the tournament, specifically to see if his skills matched his arrogance. Some hoped he would win and back up his words. Others hoped he would learn a lesson in humility. The days counted down. Marcus trained harder, posted more often, and grew more confident. 2 weeks before the tournament, he bought new competition uniforms. They were expensive, custom-made, with his school's logo embroidered in gold thread. He wanted to look as impressive as possible. He also scheduled extra classes, telling his students they needed to support him with their energy and attendance. He raised his rates by $20 per month, explaining that training with a tournament competitor was worth the extra cost. Most families paid without complaint. James continued his work, pushing his cart through the hallways, cleaning and maintaining the building. He watched Marcus prepare, watched the pride grow larger each day, watched the kindness grow smaller. James said nothing. He just watched and waited. 1 week before the tournament, Marcus was practicing late when Ryan, his assistant instructor, approached him. Ryan looked nervous. "Master Chen," Ryan said, "can I speak honestly with you?" "Of course," Marcus said, breathing hard from his workout. "I think you should be careful at this tournament." I looked at the list of competitors. Some of them are really skilled, and the masters doing demonstrations are legendary people. Maybe we should show more respect, Marcus laughed. "Ryan, respect is earned. I've earned mine through hard work and winning. These old masters are impressive, sure, but their time has passed. This tournament is my chance to show that the new generation has arrived." Ryan nodded but did not look convinced. "I just think humility is important in martial arts. My grandfather always said the best warriors are the quietest ones." "Your grandfather probably never competed at this level," Marcus said dismissively. The morning of the tournament arrived with bright sunshine. Marcus woke up at 5 o'clock, too excited to sleep any longer. He had laid out his new uniform the night before. It hung on his closet door, perfect and crisp. He ate a light breakfast, checked his bag 3 times to make sure he had everything, and drove to the arena an hour early. The city sports arena was massive. It could hold 8,000 people. Workers were already setting up chairs on the main floor. A large competition mat dominated the center, surrounded by judges' tables and scoring equipment. Banners hung from the ceiling announcing the Grandmaster's exhibition tournament. Marcus checked in at the registration desk. A woman gave him a competitor badge and a schedule. "Please be in the warm-up area by 9 o'clock, she said. "The opening ceremony starts at 10. Marcus took his badge and found his way to the competitors section. Other martial artists were already there, stretching and preparing. He recognized a few faces from previous tournaments. Some nodded to him. Others ignored him, focused on their own preparation. He found an empty spot and began his warm-up routine. His muscles felt good, loose and ready. His mind was focused. Everything he had worked for came down to today. He closed his eyes and visualized his forms, seeing each movement perfectly in his mind. By 9:30, the arena was filling with people. Marcus could hear the crowd noise even from the competitors' area. He peeked out and saw hundreds of people finding their seats. He spotted some of his students and their parents sitting together in a section on the right side. They waved when they saw him. Marcus waved back, feeling proud. At 9:45, an announcement came over the loudspeaker. "All competitors and demonstration masters, please take your seats. The opening ceremony will begin in 15 minutes. Marcus sat down in the 3rd row of the competitors section. He was surrounded by other martial artists, all wearing their school uniforms. Some looked nervous. Others looked calm and confident. Marcus felt he was among the confident ones. He belonged here. The lights dimmed slightly. The crowd noise dropped to a murmur. A spotlight appeared on the center of the mat. A man in a suit walked out holding a microphone. He was the tournament organizer, a well-known figure in the martial arts community. "Welcome," the man said, his voice booming through the arena. "Thank you all for joining us for the Grand Masters Exhibition Tournament. Today you will witness incredible skill, dedication, and the true spirit of martial arts." The crowd applauded. Marcus clapped along, his heart beating faster. This was it. This was his moment. "Before our competitions begin," the organizer continued, "we have a very special treat. We have invited several legendary masters to demonstrate traditional forms. These are not competitions. These are celebrations of martial arts history and excellence. Please welcome our first demonstration master." A woman walked onto the mat. The announcer introduced her as Master Chen Li, a 7th-degree black belt in Kung Fu. She was in her 70s but moved like someone half her age. Her demonstration was beautiful, fluid, and powerful at the same time. The crowd gave her a standing ovation when she finished. Marcus clapped politely but was not particularly impressed. Traditional forms looked nice, but he believed modern martial arts was more practical, more effective. Still, he respected the skill it took to move like that at her age. 3 more masters demonstrated after her. Each one received loud applause. Each one showed decades of training and dedication. Marcus glanced at his watch. He was ready for the demonstrations to end and the real competition to begin. "And now," the announcer said, "we have one final demonstration master. This gentleman needs no introduction to those who know martial arts history. He is a legend who has stepped away from the spotlight, but whose impact on our art cannot be overstated. Please welcome Master James Morrison, 8th-degree black belt, 3-time world champion, and founder of the Morrison School of Traditional Martial Arts." Marcus felt his entire body go cold. James Morrison. James. The Janitor James. The crowd erupted in applause. People stood up, cheering loudly. Marcus sat frozen in his seat, unable to process what he was hearing. This had to be a mistake. There must be 2 people named James Morrison. The janitor who cleaned his building could not possibly be a legendary martial artist. But then he walked onto the mat. It was him. The same man Marcus had mocked and belittled for months. But he looked completely different. Gone were the blue coveralls and cleaning cart. James wore a traditional white gi with a black belt that had 8 gold stripes. His posture was straight and powerful. His face was calm but commanded respect. This was not a janitor. This was a master. Marcus felt like he might be sick. His hands started shaking. Around him, other competitors were whispering excitedly. "That's James Morrison. I can't believe he came out of retirement to demonstrate. My instructor trained under him 20 years ago. He's a living legend," the announcer continued. Master Morrison retired from competition 15 years ago after achieving every major championship in traditional martial arts. He has spent his retirement living simply and quietly, dedicating himself to helping young people through his scholarship program. Master Morrison has personally funded the training of over 200 underprivileged youth, asking nothing in return except that they pass on their knowledge to others. The applause grew even louder. Marcus could barely hear over the roaring in his ears. His mind was racing through every interaction he had ever had with James. Every cruel word, every dismissive gesture, every moment of mockery. Oh God, what had he done? Master Morrison works as a building custodian, the announcer said, because he believes in living humbly and staying connected to everyday people. He says that cleaning floors keeps him grounded and reminds him that service to others is the highest form of martial arts. Several people in the crowd wiped tears from their eyes. The respect and admiration in the arena was overwhelming, and Marcus sat in the middle of it all, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his entire life. James bowed to the judges, to the crowd, and then stood in the center of the mat. For a moment, he was completely still. Then he began to move. Marcus had seen hundreds of martial arts demonstrations. He had performed in dozens himself. but he had never seen anything like this. James moved like water, like wind, like something beyond human. Every technique was perfect. Every transition was smooth. Power and grace combined in ways Marcus did not know were possible. The form James performed was ancient, something passed down through generations. But in his hands it looked fresh and alive. He moved through kicks, strikes, blocks, and throws with a speed and precision that seemed impossible for a man his age. His breathing was controlled, his focus absolute. Marcus watched and felt his own skills shrink in comparison. Everything he had learned, everything he had practiced, suddenly seemed shallow and incomplete. James was not just performing techniques. He was demonstrating an understanding of martial arts that went beyond the physical. This was art at its highest level. The demonstration lasted 7 minutes. When James finished, he stood in the center of the mat, barely breathing hard, and bowed deeply. For 2 full seconds, the arena was silent. Then the crowd exploded in applause. People jumped to their feet, shouting and cheering. The ovation went on for nearly a minute. James bowed again, smiled slightly, and walked off the mat. As he passed close to the competitors section, his eyes met Marcus's for just a moment. There was no anger in that look, no satisfaction at Marcus's obvious shock. There was only a quiet sadness, a disappointment that cut deeper than any anger could have. Marcus looked away, unable to hold that gaze. He felt exposed, humiliated, not by James but by his own actions. Every person in this arena now knew who James really was, but Marcus was the only one who knew how he had treated him. Around him, competitors were talking excitedly. Did you see that transition in the 3rd sequence? His balance was perfect. No wonder he won every championship. He's on a completely different level. Ryan, Marcus's assistant instructor, was sitting several rows ahead. He turned around and looked at Marcus, his expression saying everything without words. This was the man you mocked. This was the person you treated as beneath you. Ryan turned back around, shaking his head slowly. The competition began shortly after. Marcus's division would not compete until after lunch. He sat through the morning matches without really seeing them. His mind kept replaying James's demonstration, kept remembering his own cruel words, kept feeling the weight of his shame growing heavier. During the lunch break, Marcus walked outside the arena. He needed air, he needed to think. Several of his students found him in the parking lot. Master Chen, wasn't Master Morrison amazing? Jennifer asked. Did you know who he was? Marcus could not speak. He just nodded slightly. The students looked at each other, confused by their instructor's strange mood. They drifted away, leaving Marcus alone. He pulled out his phone and searched for James Morrison Martial Arts. Hundreds of results appeared. Articles about his championship victories, videos of his old demonstrations, stories about his scholarship program, a Wikipedia page detailing his achievements and his philosophy of humble service. There were photos of James from 20 years ago standing on podiums holding trophies surrounded by students teaching at seminars. The tournament ended at 6 o'clock in the evening. Marcus placed 15th out of 22 competitors in his division. He had never placed so poorly in his life. The judges' scores reflected what everyone could see. His mind had not been on his performance. His technique had been sloppy, his focus scattered. Awards were given to the top 3 finishers in each division. Marcus sat in his chair and watched others walk to the podium to receive their medals. He felt numb, hollow. The day that was supposed to be his triumph had become his greatest humiliation. As the arena began to empty, Marcus gathered his things slowly. He wanted to leave quickly, to escape before anyone could talk to him. But as he walked toward the exit, he saw James standing near the main doors. Several people surrounded him, asking for autographs and photos. James was gracious with everyone, smiling and talking quietly. Marcus tried to walk past without being noticed. But just as he reached the door, he heard a voice call out, "Mr. Chen." It was James. He had separated himself from his admirers and was looking directly at Marcus. His expression was calm, but there was something in his eyes that made Marcus stop walking. It was not anger or satisfaction. It was something sadder and deeper. "Could we talk for a moment?" James asked. It was not really a question. It was a request that Marcus could not refuse, though everything in him wanted to run away. "Yes," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. James gestured toward a quiet corner of the lobby away from the remaining crowds. They walked there together, their footsteps echoing on the hard floor. When they stopped, James turned to face Marcus directly. For a long moment, he just looked at him, and Marcus felt like he was being seen completely for the first time in his life. "I need to tell you something," James began, his voice gentle but firm. "I did not reveal who I was because I wanted to humiliate you. I worked in your building for a simple reason. After I retired from competition, I realized that success had made me proud. I had started to believe my own reputation. I started to think I was special because of my achievements." Marcus looked at the floor, unable to meet James's eyes. "So I took a job as a janitor," James continued. "I wanted to remember that every person has value, regardless of their position. I wanted to learn humility by serving others. I wanted to be reminded daily that who you are matters more than what you have accomplished." James paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made Marcus's chest tighten. "But you, Marcus, you treated me with contempt. Not because of anything I did to you, but because you judged my worth by my uniform and my job. You looked at me and saw someone beneath you. I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. The words felt inadequate, too small for the magnitude of his shame. "I know you are," James said, "but your apology is not what concerns me most. What concerns me is why you did it. You did not just look down on me. You turned away a young boy named Devin because he did not fit your image of success. You used me as an example to teach your students that some people are worth more than others." Marcus felt tears running down his face now. He did not try to stop them. "Real martial arts," James said, "is not about trophies or expensive schools or proving you are better than others. It is about discipline, respect, and understanding that strength without character is worthless. You have skill, Marcus. I watched you compete today. Even in your distracted state, I could see the talent you have developed. But what good is that skill if you use it to build walls between people instead of bridges?" James reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple business card. He held it out to Marcus. "Devin is training with me now. That boy you rejected has more heart than many black belts I have known. He practices every day with dedication and joy. He asks questions, works hard, and treats everyone with respect. He is what a martial artist should be." Marcus took the card with shaking hands. It was for the Morrison Community Martial Arts Center. The address was on the other side of the city, in a neighborhood Marcus had never visited. "I run a program for children who cannot afford expensive training," James explained. "I do not charge them anything. I teach them martial arts, but more importantly, I teach them that their worth is not measured by money or status. I teach them to see the value in every person they meet." James's voice grew quieter, almost sad. "I hope that by working silently, by serving humbly, I might inspire you to question your own attitudes. I thought perhaps you would see me as a fellow human being and realize that jobs do not define worth. But instead, my presence seemed to make you more cruel, as if you needed to remind yourself constantly that you were above me." "I was wrong," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I was so wrong about everything." "Yes, you were," James agreed. "But being wrong is not the end of your story, Marcus. It is the beginning of a choice. You can continue as you have been, measuring yourself against others, building your ego on the idea that you are superior, or you can learn what real mastery means." James stepped closer, his voice becoming more intense. "True mastery is not about defeating opponents. It is about defeating the worst parts of yourself. It is about looking at your own pride, your own prejudice, your own cruelty, and choosing to be better. That is the hardest fight you will ever face, and it is the only one that truly matters." Marcus could not speak. Sobs shook his shoulders. Years of arrogance, years of looking down on others, years of measuring his worth by who he could consider beneath him. All of it crashed down on him at once. He saw himself clearly for the first time, and the reflection was ugly. "When you are ready to learn what martial arts truly means," James said, placing a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder, "my door is open. But first, you need to do the hardest work of all. You need to look honestly at who you have been and decide who you want to become." James started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. "One more thing." Devin's grandmother works 3 jobs to support him. She cleans hotel rooms, including night shifts at the Riverside Hotel. You drove past her dozens of times and never saw her, just like you never really saw me. We are invisible to people like you used to be. I hope that changes." With that, James walked away. Marcus watched him go, saw other people approach him with respect and admiration, saw the way James treated everyone with the same quiet dignity regardless of who they were. This was what a master looked like. Not someone who needed to prove his superiority, but someone who lifted others up through his presence. Marcus left the arena and sat in his car for a long time. The parking lot gradually emptied. The sun set, painting the sky orange and purple. Marcus looked at the business card James had given him. He turned it over in his hands, reading the address again and again. Finally, he pulled out his phone. He went to his social media accounts and looked at all his posts about the tournament, all his arrogant comments about showing the old guard what real martial arts looked like. He felt sick reading them. Slowly, carefully, he deleted every post. It felt like erasing a part of himself, but that part needed to die. When he got home, Marcus did not sleep. He sat in his living room and thought about his life. He thought about Devon's hopeful face and how quickly he had dismissed him. He thought about James pushing a cleaning cart while people walked past without seeing his worth. He thought about all the students he had rejected over the years because they did not enhance his image. He thought about his school, Elite Dragon Academy, with its expensive tuition and its emphasis on exclusivity. He had built it to feel superior, to separate himself from people he considered ordinary. But what had that superiority brought him? Money, yes. Status, yes. But also loneliness, emptiness, and a heart that had grown cold and small. The next morning, Marcus called Ryan, his assistant instructor. "I need you to run the school for a few days," he said. "I have to take care of something." "Is everything okay, Master Chen?" Ryan asked. "You seemed really off yesterday at the tournament." "No," Marcus said honestly. "Everything is not okay, but I'm going to try to fix it." Marcus drove across the city to the Morrison Community Martial Arts Center. It was in an old building, nothing fancy. The sign was simple, painted by hand. Through the window, Marcus could see children practicing inside. They wore mismatched uniforms, some too big and some too small. But they moved with focus and joy. He stood outside watching for 30 minutes, not brave enough to go in. Then he saw Devon. The boy was practicing kicks against a heavy bag. His form was rough, but his effort was total. Each kick came from his whole body, driven by determination and heart. This was the boy Marcus had turned away. The door opened and James stepped out. He was wearing his janitor coveralls again. He looked at Marcus without surprise, as if he had known Marcus would come. "I don't deserve your time," Marcus said, "but I need to learn. Not martial arts techniques. I need to learn what you tried to show me. I need to learn how to be better than I have been." James studied him for a long moment. "Are you ready to be a beginner again? Are you ready to admit that your black belt means nothing if your character is flawed?" "Yes," Marcus said. "I am ready," James nodded slowly. "Then come back on Monday evening. Bring work clothes. Before you can teach others, you will help me clean this center. You will mop floors, empty trash, and serve the students. You will learn what I learned."